And Chip Roy, of course, is our congressman from District 21, representing us in Washington, D.C. Good morning, Chip.
How are you, sir? I hope you're doing well. Great to be on.
It's always good to talk to you. I'm doing well, and I have been reviewing this bill, let's see, this is the SAVE Act, and I know you had a lot to do with that. Tell me something about the SAVE Act. Tell everybody.
Yeah, happy to. I mean, I know that the fine folks of the Hill Country are frustrated like I am about the state of the border and people coming into the country and all the danger that means to the American people and fentanyl and the deaths and all the stuff. But importantly, the concern about non-citizens voting, right? Especially right now when we've got this unbelievably important election. We've got to get Donald Trump elected. We've got to get the House and the Senate. And we've got jurisdictions across the country like Oakland and San Francisco and D.C. and New York and other places who are overtly trying to register non-citizens to vote. It's so bad under the current law that the state of Arizona, which has a straight-up requirement of American citizenship, a proof of documentation that you're a citizen to vote, but the courts have said and interpreted federal law that, oh, no, you can't do that. So Arizona has two systems. They can only check citizenship for their state and local elections. They can't for federal. And that's the current state of the law. So I've got a bill, the SAVE Act, that I introduced. We have now subsequently passed it through the House. It's, I think, H.R. 8281. We passed it. We had 5 Democrats who joined us. We passed it in, I think, early July, maybe late June. And now that's sitting over in the Senate. That bill would require states to check documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote. It's that simple. And people say, well, Chip, but what about federalism? I said, hold on. The Constitution contemplates that we, Congress, can require that for congressional and presidential elections, federal elections. We can do that, and we should now, because too many states are straight up totally fine with non-citizens voting, and that will undermine the Republic and our Republican form of government. So, last point is, we passed it. That's all well and good. But we know the Senate and the President aren't going to want to pass and sign it.
Right.
So we should, and we should have in July, and I'm pushing the Speaker and Republicans, we should pass it as soon as we get back, along with a government funding bill to put pressure in the end of September that says, look, if you want to fund government, then you should at least require that only citizens vote. Democrats will fight it, but let's have that fight. President Trump has tweeted and has publicly commented that he believes we ought to pick that fight. We'll see what happens here in the coming weeks.
All right, I got 2 questions about this, Chip. One of them is about our Speaker Johnson. Is he okay to work with? Is he on your side in this?
So, Mike, I've known a long time, and he's a good man, truly. He believes in the Constitution. He's a Christian, overtly. There's no doubt about it. And he is solid on a lot of issues. He is probably at his core the most conservative speaker we've had in a long time in terms of his belief system. But what we're hoping, and Mike knows this, I'm not saying anything I wouldn't say with him sitting right here with me, that we want Mike to stand up and lead and fight.
Yeah.
And, earlier this year, Mike made some decisions I disagreed with. We said we were going to require the border get secured before we sent more money to Ukraine. He backed away from that because he was too sympathetic that we needed to send more money to Ukraine. There are other examples, but last spring's funding fights, there never was really a fight. We passed bills with more Democrat votes than Republican votes. This is a long-winded answer, but it's complex in that, look, we're all united heading into the fall. Mike Johnson would be a hell of a better speaker than any Democrat and most Republicans. But I got to say, we need Mike to fight. Mike needs to step up now that he's had 6 months under his belt or 8 months under his belt, and we've got to now do something with it. I think we should pass the CR and SAVE Act.
By the way, folks, tomorrow morning, Mike will be on the air at 7 o'clock with his program this week on the Hill, and we carry that weekly. Here's the other part of it, Chip, a practical matter. Am I going to have to take my birth certificate to the voting booth?
So that's a great question because people have been asking that. We don't want to impinge on the average American's ability to vote. So the way it would work, just as quickly as I can, is first of all, it's prospective, right? We wanted to make it as hard as it could be in terms of making sure that we're checking citizenship, and as easy as it can be for citizens not to be impeded, right? So the way we structured the bill was to say if you're currently registered, then you can show up and vote under your current registration. Now, that would, of course, require that we be vigilant on the second part of the bill, which requires the states to check voter rolls and opens up all of the systems to do that. So all the data is available to check all the voter rolls. So that's part of it. The second part is that, well, if you move in the future, if you change, if you get married, all the stuff, like normal triggering events that you got to re-register, then you'll have to show up with a passport or with your real ID in a state that has a real ID that's already been checked about your citizenship. Or if you're a state that doesn't have a real ID, then you got to show up with your birth certificate or a formal copy from the state, which you can get for free or cheap for a few bucks if you ping the state. And then if all of that fails, there's another path that allows you to go and check in with the registrar, and they can go through a series of things to check your citizenship with other sources and check databases, and then they ultimately can sign an affidavit as a elected official that you're a citizen. The reason we did all of that, as you'll understand, is that we had to make this sustain a challenge in court, that we're not making it so it's too difficult for an individual to be able to vote as a citizen.
Talking with Congressman Chip Roy, District 21. He represents us in Washington, D.C. for the District 21 folks. It seems to be a little bit complicated, and I'm being told now, Chip, that these people don't have to go in and vote physically, that because of the cheating, all they need is a warm body in this country, and I'm sure you've heard all of that.
Yeah. No, there's no question. And so the other parts to this, of course, would be to, we have state requirements, of course, that you check voter ID on mail-in ballots, right? That was added in Texas. That was added in certain other locations. And we need to do that. I personally, if I were czar, if I were snapping my fingers, and of course I'm not, and use of czar is a intentionally funny term vis-a-vis Kamala. Right. But if I were in charge, I would have same-day voting. I would have very limited but very targeted old-school absentee ballots for our men and women in uniform, and then force it all to be, you're voting on Election Day effectively, unless you're, traveling in service to your country, basically, and eliminate all of the mail-in ballot fraud, which is still significant. So, but I'm not. I can't back that off, right? Like the federal government. It's really difficult for us to get into the mechanics of a state and tell them exactly what to do. And frankly, we as Texans may not want that. So we have an obligation now heading into the legislative session. We need to go even further to tighten Texas. Texas is better than a lot of states. We're 2 weeks early voting, not 4. We've got stringent requirements on mail-in ballots more than we used to. But I personally would get rid of that. I would have a limited early voting and try to make it all in and around a week so you can eliminate that fraud. And by the way, credit to Governor Youngkin. He did what I believe it was Gillespie County did, which was require paper ballots. Gillespie County Republicans, that is. And, Youngkin did that for the state of Virginia and through an executive order. So those kinds of things are things we need to be doing much more aggressively to try to eliminate fraud.
Okay, finally on this thing about our voting system, there was a story in Politico this week that said that we have problems with the ability to hack the machines, and this goes back to your point about paper ballots. If everybody votes on a paper ballot, we don't have to worry about machines getting hacked, do we?
No, we don't. I mean, obviously, you want to see how they're tabulated. The first time I ever remember going into a voting booth was with my dad in '76 when he voted for Reagan over Ford, and going in and pulling the lever in the little, you remember, right, the little curtain, and you pull the lever with the little punch tabs. That's how I remember voting. Right, so you had a physical piece of paper that was attached to your vote there, the punch thing. But I think paper is the best way to go if you want to eliminate fraud, eliminate any concern about technology and hacking and all the things that we know is possible now. So again, same-day voting, limit mail-in ballots, go back to paper ballots, or whatever systems are as close to paper ballots as you can do to efficiently process them during the voting day, and get your votes counted. Right? Florida manages to do that. They get it all done on election day. They've done that now in the last 2 elections. So it can and should be done.
All right. So all of this is about voting. All this is about the SAVE Act that Chip is sponsoring in the House, and it's got to go through the entire process of the Senate and then vote on the final bill. What is our part in this, Chip? What can we do?
Well, the most important thing for listeners out there, I mean, obviously I support it, and for the Hill Country folks that I represent, you know where I am. It's my bill. But we need to make sure every Republican is pushing the Speaker. If there's any engagement with the Speaker on his show that I know he hosts, all of that stuff, he might pre-record that, Bono. But the point is, we've got to push the Speaker and push Republicans to stick with it and fight. Now, they got to do it in concert with President Trump. My firm belief is that President Trump, as he has publicly tweeted, as he has publicly put out, that he believes we need to pick a fight on this issue, border plus non-citizen voting. In fact, he has specifically called for adding the SAVE Act to any funding mechanism, in particular a continuing resolution in September. So that's the most important thing. We just need all Republicans to back up that play call so that we can try to force the fight in September. Now, look, I'm under no illusions. When we get to September 29th, some of our more moderate members are going to freak out over the, rumbles of shutdown. My point is, I don't care. I want to force the issue, force it into the consciousness of the American people, and then whatever we do at the end of September, we do. The one thing I know for sure is that we cannot fund the government in a short-term continuing resolution into the lame duck and give Democrats the pen in December. We need to kick it into next year so that President Trump can have the pen and be able to push the right priorities using the spending bills in February. We can't keep doing what we're doing, as you know, Harley. I mean, we are past $1 trillion in interest, more interest in defense spending. We're bleeding out $2 trillion a year or more, $35 trillion in debt we cracked. We're demonstrably destroying the dollar and driving up inflation by spending money we don't have. So we got to cut the subsidies, cut the fat, cut the bureaucrats, and get busy, saving the American dream for your kids and grandkids and mine too.
Talking to Chip Roy. Chip, if this gets rolled into another bill, and that was my understanding that you wanted this to be part of some other bill, if it gets into a continuing resolution, will it remain the law after that continuing resolution runs out?
Sure, if we make that a part of the effort to pass the bill. In other words, if we and look, I my preference is single subject bills and don't play the games.
Sure.
But those are tools. Those are tools. They're not the gospel. Like, so when you get down to the home stretch, and we're trying to tell Democrats, like, look, if you want to fund government, like, pick a fight. And one of the fights is, you know what? There's an 87% issue. 87% of Americans, according to one poll, believe that only American citizens should vote in American elections. So it seems to me we ought to put Democrats in that box in the fall. Add it to the spending bill, continuing resolution, or an appropriations bill, whatever they come up with, and then make that the fight. Then, if you do it, you can force it. And look, if you're willing to play hardball on a shutdown, and if we win the message, then we can turn it into permanent law. My guess is that we'd have Republicans who would kind of fold on it heading into October. But at a minimum, we would have elevated the issue and set the table for Trump. The whole key here is, hell, man, we're like, 80 days out, or I've lost track, but we're barreling in on the election. Early voting starts in some states in September. So we've got to crystallize the fight, and Republicans in the House of Representatives need to help the president by picking a fight. That's why I would have picked that fight in July. We would have had all of August to be messaging that. So I'm trying to message it now, set up the fight for the first week in September when we go back into town.
Right. We can't always get what we want, and sometimes you got to use a strategy, and you use their methods to combat them. Chip Roy's going to be in Kerrville today. You're going to be speaking about 11 o'clock with the Republican County women, right? Kerr County
Yes,
women.
sir. Now, we're gonna visit with the sheriff's office. We're gonna stop off and have a prayer meeting with some folks. We're gonna meet with the Republican women, have a couple conversations with some local businesses. We got some concerns about that. This battery plant or battery factory or whatever going in. We're gonna have some conversations about that, about why we don't want that kind of crap in the Hill Country and not subsidizing it, and meet with some of the local press. But yeah, the main event is meeting with the Republican women who they run the show. So meeting with them in Kerrville.
Right. All right. Well, Chip, be careful. Anything else you need to tell us?
No, just stay vigilant. We gotta get out there and show up to the election, show up to the polls, sign up to volunteer, be poll watchers, stay engaged. The sheriff's races, the school board races, the DA races. These commies are trying to come in and take our great Hill Country and the conservative people here. So the election is obviously about making sure we get President Trump back in the White House and taking the House and Senate. But it's about moving Texas in the right direction. I think we had a pretty strong rebound in the primaries, and about getting conservatives. I'm really excited about my friend Wes Burdell, for example. But we've got to now step on the gas and do something with it as we head into legislative session. So just get active these last 80 days before the election.
All right, Chip, have a safe trip, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks so much.
All right. God bless. Hope you're healthy and well, my friend. Take care.
Thank you.